Last week I started this message on positioned by presence. Everybody say positioned. Come on, everybody say positioned by presence. Listen, we started in Esther last week, remember? We started in Esther chapter 1 and chapter 2. And in Esther chapter 1 and chapter 2, we saw that Queen Vashti lost her position. And what I want to deal with real fast in the beginning of this is I want to make sure you don't lose your position. I want to make sure you identify that God wants to position you for phenomenal promise and phenomenal destiny. But how many knows that you can be called by God but not live out your calling? You hear me? You could be called all day long. Matter of fact, Jesus said what? Many are called, few are chosen. Okay, for some people, that's a mystery. Whoa, that's deep, bro. What does that mean? Literally, the difference between being called and chosen, you know what the difference is? The difference between being called and chosen is your choice. Jesus calls you. Could you imagine if I called you to have some In-N-Out burger right now? Right? A little 3x3 action. 4x4. Actually, a 4x2. For me, I'm cutting down the cheese, trying. Okay. Anyways, so it's 4 patties to 2 cheeses. If I called you to a 4x2, I might call you to have a 4x2, but unless you come and what? Eat it, that's what it is to be chosen. So just because God calls you doesn't mean you're chosen. When are you chosen? When you choose his calling. When you choose his calling, you're chosen. When you choose not his calling, you're just called. Are you with me? Okay, so listen, I want to give you a few principles. People that lose their position and their power. Vashti was the queen in Esther chapter 1 and chapter 2. Vashti was the queen, but she was unwilling to come into the king's presence. You can take out your phone and take a picture of this if you need to. Listen, she was called to be a queen. She was placed as a queen, but when the king called her to his presence and she refused, she lost her what? Position, and she lost her power. God's calling many of us to his presence. I'm not talking about being present at church. He's calling us to be in his presence. We're going to go here in Psalms. Actually, can you bring up Psalm 16:11? I want to give you some word real quick. What's Psalm 16 verse 11 says this: you will make known to me the path of life. How many of us are looking at our life going, God, what do you want to do? Right? God, what do you want to do with my life? You will make known to me the path of my life. Well, how does this work? In his presence is fullness of joy, and at his right hand, what is his right hand? Position. If I sit on a throne and I put you at my right hand, that is a position of favor. That's a position of sonship. At his right hand, in his position, is pleasure forevermore. When you're not positioned right, when you're not positioned by God, you're not going to have the joy of the Lord the way you're supposed to have the joy of the Lord because you're not correctly positioned. I hope you're hearing me. And I'm not preaching at you. I'm preaching with us. So don't like being like, well, are you just talking to me today? Because I love that when I get done preaching, even when I'm preaching to 500 people and I stand at the back door and everyone's like, dude, why were you just like talking to me the whole time? And then the next person comes up to me, why were you talking to me the whole time? I'm not talking. Everybody look at your neighbor and say, he's not talking to you. Okay, now look at your neighbor. Hey, look at your neighbor and say, I lied. He is. Listen, I ain't talking to you. God's talking to you. I will make known the path of life. In your presence is fullness of joy, and at your right hand is pleasure forevermore. Some of us are not experiencing the pleasure of God because we're not experiencing the position of God. So because we're not positioned right, we'll never have the pleasure that we are supposed to have in this life. By the way, can you okay, I'm going to wait. So go back to my notes. Vashti was unwilling to come into presence. Number 2, Saul lost position waiting or not waiting. Thank you. Saul lost position not waiting on presence. Here he was supposed to be a king. Samuel says, wait till I get there. Saul says, bro, come on, man. We're supposed to start on time. Church service is at 10:30. He gets ticked off because it's not on time. He becomes legalistic about it. Doesn't wait on the Lord because he's not willing to wait on presence because he has a timeline. And God, you're not fitting in my timeline right now. Then I'm done. And because of that one choice, he has position without presence. He stays king. But now David, who has presence, Saul kills 1,000, David kills 10,000. Number 3, Moses loses out on the promise by prioritizing people over presence. You don't understand. My husband needs this. My wife needs this. My kids need this. My friend needs this from the church. Moses loses out on promise by prioritizing people over presence. What happened? The people begged him for water out of the rock. And because it worked the first time, he did it the second time out of witchcraft, out of religion, out of people pleasing. He decided, I'll go ahead and people please instead of God please. And when he people pleased, instead of having a blessing for the people, he not only cursed the people, but he cursed himself. He cursed himself out of promise because I want to people please. I want to please my kids. I want to please my spouse. I want to please my friends. I want to please. I got to people please, Chris. Great. You can have position and not fulfill the pleasure that you're supposed to have in this life because you're not willing to be aligned with his presence. You might have the position. You might be the head pastor. You might be the senior leader. You might be the evangelist, the prophet. You might be phenomenal, right? You got the position. Congratulations. No presence. And without presence, you can't fulfill promise. Write that down. Without presence, you can't fulfill promise. Here we go. Number 4. Eli's control to allow his relationships that cause corruption and chaos. Remember where Eli's the priest and his sons having sex with all the women, and they're stealing all the good steaks from the people. The people came in sacrificing, and the good steak was supposed to go to God, and they're like, whoa, bro, that's ribeye? That's a New York? I'm going to need that filet mignon over here, bro. And Eli, I'm going to deal hard with this real quick. Ready? I'm kind of skipping my notes for a second, but I'm going to deal hard with this because this is the revelation I wanted to share during the offering. Is your ability for correction is not the same as correcting. If you're a person who is just correct, have you ever given someone advice like, hey bro, you probably shouldn't do this? Is different than do not do that. Do you hear the difference? Do not do that versus, hey bro, I don't know if you should, I wouldn't do that if I was you. Versus do not do. Can I tell you what's wrong with our society right now? We're soft. We're soft. We don't know how to put a command or correction in place with people. And there's a lack of people coming into alignment because there's a lack of correction. Everyone's scared to bring correction. And listen, you will know you're a leader if you're bringing correction. If you're not bringing correction and you're only correcting, listen, if you're not bringing correction, correction makes your leadership, while correcting exposes your lack of leadership. It's a last note on there. Can you bring it up? It's going to be on the screen. You can take a picture of it. Listen, correction marks your leadership, while correcting exposes your lack of leadership. Have you ever heard a mom that says, if you do that again, I'm going to spank your butt? And then again, he does it, and she goes, if you do that again, I'm going to spank you. And he does it again. If you do that again, I'm going to, and all day long, she screams at the top of her lungs, I'm going to. And what does she never do? She never spanks him. And so that kid is a hellion. How many's ever met that kid that's a hellion? Because the mom says, I'm going to spank you. I'm going to ground you. We're going to do this. I'm going to take your Xbox. I'm going to this. I'm going to that. I'm going to take your phone. Oh, my God. You want to see your kid? You want to see your kid become demon-possessed? Take his phone. Take her phone for like a day. like the head will start spitting. All sorts of manifestations going to happen. There's a difference in your leadership when you're just correcting. Don't do that. If you do this, I'm going to do this. Right? That's annoying. How many's ever heard that type of leadership? It's not leadership at all. It's a lack of leadership. When you are only correcting, but you're never bringing correction. Can I tell you, when we move into this new building, God is going to bring people, and you're going to have, I'm just going to be raw this morning, you're going to have the spiritual balls to actually say what no one's willing to say. Because you have the love to follow it. Do you understand? Listen, when I'm a spiritual father in or a physical father in Madison's life, who was up here singing, my daughter, when Bryce was raising Bryce and Madison, and it was time to correct them, I didn't say, if you do it again, I'm going to spank you. Don't touch it. They knew that was like, oh, froze, right? And if they happened to lose their mind that day, right? If they happen to have just got the spirit of idiot come upon them, I would pick them up and I would bring them into a room and I would look them in the eye and would say, you know what? I love you with all my heart. I'm about to bend you over my knee with all self-control, and I am going to show you my love. And I would spank them. And it would break their spirit. You know that cry? Not you know the cry that your kids are fake? And everyone puts up with it. Oh, yeah. No, I'm talking real cry. Like, Dad, that hurt so bad. Remember those cries? If you never cried that way, I'll meet you after church. I got some correcting to do. But they would come up out of that point of fire that I imparted, right? I released the fire in their life, on their butt. And I would bring them, though, after that, and I would look them in the eyes, and I would say, Daddy loves you. And I would hold them until they were done crying. I didn't walk into the room without control. Listen, I didn't walk in the room without control and beat that donkey. I didn't, bam, shut the hell up, right? That didn't happen. Someone's like, you're triggering me. No, listen, I didn't walk in the room and throw them on the floor and beat whatever I could get to. Chancla. I didn't throw my shoe at them. I walked in the room, and I would leave them in the room and say, I'm going to be back. By the way, they hated that. I'm closing the door. Why? Because I need to renew my mind. Before I brought correction, I got to make sure I completely love them and I'm completely in control of my facets. Let this mind be in you that's also in Christ Jesus, not to the conform to the way you were raised, not conform to this world, but be transformed with a renewed mind. Are you with me? So we're not doing this like old school church. We're not doing this like 25 years ago. We're doing this with a renewed thinking, a renewed spirit, a renewed mind. Listen, I'm going to go ahead and set you down. I'll be back. I will not deal with this until I'm completely in love with you. Once I'm completely in love with you, oh, we're going to deal with it. And I'm going to not suggest correction. I'm going to correct the issue. And after I corrected the issue, right? Then I brought them and I hold them. I held them to my heart. And I'm like, I'm not letting you go. You just cried out. I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you too. And there became intimacy between me and Madison, me and Bryce, and me and Nikki. Intimacy like you can't imagine. I'm not talking inappropriate intimacy. I'm talking intimacy between a father, a son, a father, and a daughter. By the way, like what you said, that was not how I was raised. They chased me around the hallways with a belt. And whatever the belt swung and hit was just the beginning of my punishment. I remember having my dad walk in the room, raise a mattress, my whole body roll off the mattress into my weight system, right? My head hit the weights. I had a concussion. I remember me putting my fist through a wall and then waking up the next morning, right? So, like, I'm not telling you I had a good example. I'm telling you I actually had a terrible example, which caused me to be inspired to be a great leader. It caused me to be inspired to be a healthy leader. Are you with me? It caused me to say, I don't want to do it like that, but it doesn't cause me to throw the baby out with the bathwater and say, well, I'm just not going to discipline because I was hurt in the past. Could you imagine being the guy that says, oh, because I was hurt, instead, I'm just not going to do anything? This is what's happened in our society. We've had people that have experienced it unhealthy, so they go completely the opposite way of healthy leadership. And guess what? You might be positioned. You might be the title of dad, mom, brother. Leave it on my title. Thank you. You might have the position. You might have the position as a leader, but you don't carry the presence that's bringing the transformation. You're not going to carry the presence of a father. You might have the position of a father. You might have a position of a mother, but you're not carrying the presence that's going to bring the presence of joy. What does the presence do? No. What Psalms say? Presence is fullness of joy. Everyone that should follow you should be operating in fullness of joy. There should be pleasure. If there's not, Chris, you just talked about beating someone's butt. You got to understand that when we went into football practice, they beat our butts. Why? So we would win on Friday night. And at the end of Friday night, you know the guy I'm hugging? Is that stupid coach who used to grab my face mask all week long and scream and say, you're worth. Do you understand? And I'm not saying he did it the right way either. But do you understand that the guy who abused me 4 days a week, that I didn't want to hug, anybody other than him? Because he didn't, well, if I was you, I would hit harder, maybe. Could you imagine? You might want to tackle completely. I'm thinking a complete tackle might work for you. I never. It was, if you want to play, you're either going to be the hammer or the nail. What you going to be, son? And if you're going to be the nail, I don't need you. I got enough nails. They're all on the sidelines. I need hammers. By the way, if you don't get I was on defense, right? So I was at my truck. I had to hit, and the nail had to sink. How did you know whether you were the hammer or the nail? If you sunk, you were the nail. If you sunk someone, you were the hammer. Are you with me? They put a command on me. Willie 4. Willie 4 means I'm going through the 4 hole. I knew exactly, they put a command on my life. It wasn't a suggestion. It was, I don't care what the play is. You have a blitz on this play, Willie through the 4 hole. As soon as I saw that ball move, I wasn't worried about anything else other than the command on my life. Sorry to make this a football analogy day. A little bit not. Okay, let's look at that last principle in this thing. Oh man, I'm running out of time. Here we go. And the new covenant. Mary lost the value in her position when she used her position to get favor over others and self-promotion and entitlement fashion. Mary walks in the room and says, hey, I have a call on my life. So that's my son. I need to be escorted to the front. And they're like, excuse me, Jesus, someone out there says they're your mom and they need to be in the green room with you. And Jesus is like, who's my mom? Aren't you my mom? Aren't you my dad? And Mary's like, excuse me, like I had you. I brought you in this world. I might take you out soon. Mary lost her value in her position, listen, because she used her position to try to get over people and be an authority. I want the reputation. I want people to hear my voice. Do you want to know why I use Alex and why I use Josh and why I use Caitlin and why I'll continue to use everyone in the room? Because I don't want to be the one voice in this house. And so, but before I ever give you this mic to do this, you better be able to do that and not suck. Do you understand? Like people need to be pulled into presence. And you need to be able to put a command on the room and, well, I just was doing what the Lord. No, you weren't doing what the Lord said. That was terrible. If you did what the Lord said, it would have brought joy in the room. Everybody was so confused by everything you had to say, and they were depressed, and they wanted to shoot themselves. And, like, nobody wants to hear that. Leave the room, please. We're going to another level, baby. We're going to another level. And you have to understand that you just can't use, oh, I have a title, so because I have a title or because I've been here a long time or because I've known you a long time, then I should just be able to be where you're at. Mary lost her position as mom when she tried to use her title over his presence. I'm telling you, I don't ever want you to, Chris, why are you showing me this? Because I don't want you to lose your position, and I don't want you to be in a position without presence. I don't want you to ever be in a place without joy. I don't want you to ever be in a place without pleasure. And being in the right position is joyful, and being in his presence in the right position is pleasure. But here's the next point. Ready? Next set of points, position without presence. Lack of fulfillment, passion, and joy. I know people that are CEOs that make tons of money. They're the head guys. They have the position. Lawyers, you do not need God. Listen, you do not need God for a head position. You do not need God to be the president, to be a king, to be a CEO, to be the pastor. You don't need God. You don't need God to be the pastor. No, literally, I could take you to 90% of churches and go, see that guy? Mm-mm. Mm-mm. He has a position, but no presence. And you wonder why they're grumpy and they're mad. You wonder why they're always chasing the carrot that will never be caught. Oh, I have to make more money. I have to buy more. I have to get more. If I hire the right person, if I do this, it's always a carrot that you will never be caught. And because you're chasing a carrot that will never be caught, because presence isn't based on performance. Come on. Presence isn't based on performance. If you have presence, you have joy, whether you're in this small room or when I'm preaching to thousands. There's no difference for me. I don't bring it better when there's 10,000 people in the room. If there was just me and you in the room, you've heard just me and you in the room. It doesn't shift. Maybe I don't scream as much. Well, okay, it's the same. So position without presence brings a lack of fulfillment. Listen, one of my CEO buddies, he gave his wife Washington Mutual and Long Beach in their divorce settlement. That's how rich he was. President Bush made him the ambassador to Peru, and he was never joyful. He never had this sense of fulfillment. Never. Here he was, a king of the world, a king of society, position without presence. You will always lack fulfillment. You will always lack joy. I'm telling you, no matter what position, you're like, well, maybe if I leave this job and go to this job, then I'm going to feel joyful. No, you need to get in God's presence to feel joyful and let God put you in whatever position. Because let me tell you something. When you are positioned by God, it doesn't matter if they throw you in the prison, you start a prison ministry. Come on, Joseph. It doesn't matter if they throw you in prison. It doesn't matter if they put you in Potiphar's house, because it doesn't matter your position, because you have presence. And as long as you have presence, you're going to fulfill the position until you get to the palace. God has put a promise on you that you will go to the palace, and it doesn't matter what position you have in between the part where God called you to where God fulfills you. You might have a journey in between the promise and the palace. Is somebody hearing me right now? You're going to have a journey between the promise and the palace, and it's not going to look like the promise. Like, God called me to do all this, but I'm doing this. And this sucks, right? Like, do you think I like, after 10 years of growing the largest church in my town in Northern California, do you think for a second I wanted to pioneer a new church? No. This was the last thing I was ever going to do. I flew to Hawaii. I flew to South Carolina. I flew to Washington. The church in Washington had 2,000 people, and the pastor said, "Chris, I want you to take it over. I want you to come and take this church for me." The church in Hawaii, I want you to take the church. Church in South Carolina, I want you to take the church. My dad, I want you to take the church. And I came not because of my dad, but I prayed. Some of you were part of the team that prayed. I fasted for a month, and God told me, you can take the church, but regardless if that works out, he told me then, regardless if that works out, I've called you to Clovis. I've called you to Fresno. I've called you there. Somehow I knew in my gut of guts, to be honest with you, I knew in my guts of guts that I was going to be pioneering a stupid church again. It's the last thing I want to do. Build from beginning. But I'm telling you, Merced, Turlock, Modesto, Sacramento, Fresno, Fresneck, Bakersfield, You're perfect example of Fresneck, baby. those cowboy boots are all Fresneck. Is all Fresneck needs to be. Dave is a walking persona of Fresneck, California. So listen, all the bakers, they need a shift in the culture. They need a shift in spirituality. They need a shift in leadership. They need a shift, a paradigm shift. You don't need God to have a great position. You can have great ideas about God. Listen to this. You can have great ideas about God, and you can have God theories and God knowledge or knowledge of God without ever knowing God or hearing God's voice. No, there's a lot of preachers that know about God and know of God, but never hear God's voice and never have his presence. You're like, well, name one in the Bible, and it needs to be New Testament. Saul. Saul was a preacher for God, loved God, was the best theologian of all Sadducees and all Pharisees. He was a Pharisee of Pharisees. Saul was the man. And guess what? When God knocked Saul off of his high horse, he said, "Who are you, Lord?" Hold on. This guy was a bishop of bishops. He was a Pharisee. He knew more about God than anybody. He knew more scripture than anybody. And this is the first time he encounters God. His whole life, he knows God. He talks about God. He kills people for God. And then he says, "Who are you, Lord?" Hold on. In one moment, you're going to replace your whole life of this God that you served with anybody that's going to talk next? And he said, "I'm Jesus, the one you persecute." This is the first time he's ever heard the voice. This is the first time he's heard his presence. And listen, no matter how much religion, no matter how much study, no matter how much doctrine you have, when you have presence, it changes you. It literally changed his name from Saul to Paul. There's a lot of people in this region, they've had experience with God, and it's never been God. They've had experience in churches, but it's never been God. They've had experience in Scripture, and it's never been God. There's a difference between presence. Imagine your whole life redefined, your whole position redefined by his presence. Turn your Bibles to 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 1. Ready for this? "So I solemnly charge you in the presence of God and of Christ Jesus, who is the judge of" what? Come on. I solemnly charge you in the presence of God. Who's in the presence of who? Notice that before he charges him, he makes sure there's what? Presence. Because before he talks about his position, he says, "I want you to know this position is not away from presence. So I solemnly charge you in the presence of God and of Jesus Christ, who is the judge of the living and the dead, and by his appearing and his kingdom." What is the word kingdom? Power, authority, and dominion. So when Jesus said, "Your kingdom come, your power, authority, and dominion come on earth as it is in heaven." What needs to come? Not heaven. Heaven's a place. Heaven's not coming. What's coming? Power, authority, and dominion. God wants to give us kingdom on the earth as it is in heaven. What do we need to have on earth? Power, authority, and dominion on the earth. It's not about always going. I've said this example a million times. I'm going to say it one more time. Could you imagine you found out that your uncle died and he left you $1 million? Is that okay? It's so listen, what happens is you have to go see Lily, who's a paralegal. She's going to read you your uncle's will. And when you go into Lily's office as a paralegal and she reads you the will, what she's going to tell you is, "I got bad news and good news. Obviously, we know that your uncle died, and the good news is that he left you $1 million. The bad news is you get the $1 million. You get the $1 million once you die. Did you hear it? He gets the $1 million once you what? Once he dies. How good is that $1 million to you? But this is how most Christians believe about God. Is I'm going to be powerful once I go to heaven. I'm going to be weak here on earth. And guess what? They're not powerful parents. They're not powerful business people. They're not, because we all think it's about dying and going to heaven to get our inheritance. Oh, are you hearing me? We're all thinking when we die and go to heaven, that's when we get our inheritance. Jesus was like, no, you're not getting your inheritance when you go to heaven. You get your inheritance now on earth, right? So I solemnly charge you in the presence of God and Christ Jesus, who is the judge of the living and the dead, and by his appearing and his kingdom. Verse 2. Preach the word. Everybody say this. Preach the word. Who's the word? Who's the word? Who's the word? Love. Who's the word? Jesus. Who's the word? Love. Preach the what? Word. In the beginning was and the word was, and the word, come on. Are you catching this? Who's the word? Jesus. Who's the word? Love. So preach what? Jesus. Preach love. Reprove and be ready in season and out of season. Can I tell you what weak leadership does? Can I tell you what weak leadership does? Weak leadership goes, oh, it's not my season right now. It's just not my season. Are you hearing me? He said, be ready in your season and be ready out of your season. Well, once my kids get older, then I'm going to do the ministry. Once I get more financially established, once this happens, then I'm going to go ahead and build my business. Once this happens, then No. Strong leadership. Am I talking to strong leadership this morning? Am I talking to the I am movement, not the I am still? I am waiting on God. No, this is not the I am waiting on God. This is the I am movement, right? Preach the word. Be ready in your season and out of your season. Look at your neighbor and say, now. No, look, everybody look at a neighbor. Don't look at yourself. Look at somebody else. Now. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for. Oh, you want to preach now. Look at you. So in season and out of season. But what do? The word says reprove. Hold on. What am I talking about reprove? You know why? Because people need to know that God is still love. They've lost that God's love. They don't even know he's love. They don't know he's grace. What is grace? Unmerited favor. What is mercy? The removal of judgment. They don't know he is love that gives you unmerited, undeserved favor, and he removes judgment. Hold on. What do you need to do to this generation? You need to reprove who God is. You need to reprove the kingdom. How are you going to preach the word? You got to prove something that they think they know, that they don't know crap, by the way. They don't know crap. They know, actually, they do know crap. They know the crap their parent taught them, their grandparents taught them, their last pastor taught them, their last crappy church taught them. They know that. So your job is to reprove that actually God is love. When they have a bad theory about God, they believe lies about God. Come on, are you with me right now? They believe lies about their future. They believe lies about their promise. They believe lies about their palace. They believe lies. They are operating in what? Fear and not faith. They're operating in what? Fear and not, come on, they're operating in fear and not faith. You're going to have to reprove the goodness of God. Because honestly, Most of the church does not have a goodness of God doctrine. They are non-believing believers. Write that down. Non-believing believers. Do you believe in signs and wonders and miracles? Oh, yes, I totally believe in it. Do you do them? No, I do not do them. Do you believe in the goodness of God? I still believe in the goodness of God. Do you operate in the goodness of God? I do not operate in the goodness of God. Like, do you believe God's in a good mood? I still believe God's in a good mood. Are you in a good mood? I am not in a good mood. They don't know how to align their heart with God. They don't look like they align their heart with God. Their life doesn't look like it. And guess what? Because you're not in alignment, you're definitely not in the presence. And if you're not present, you don't have joy, and there's no pleasure. And then your face looks like no pleasure and no joy and no presence. So you're going to have to reprove and rebuke. Rebuke. Remember I was doing the whole spanking butt thing? Rebuking. If you're never being rebuked, you're never under leadership. If you're never being rebuked, you're not under leadership. You're under fellowship. What does that mean? Oh, I don't have a leader. I don't need church to go to heaven. You're right, you don't need church to go to heaven. But Jesus needed a man to be baptized. He needed John. John was his leader. Jesus is perfect theology, and Jesus had a leader before he led. And John sent Jesus. Jesus didn't send himself. If Jesus had leadership and he's God, then we have to have leadership in our life. We have to have someone to rebuke us. Oh my God, I'm going in a season right now where in my life I have leadership that rebukes me. Woo! I went through a season without leadership. Can I tell you why? Because I didn't trust the people to lead. I didn't believe in their doctrine of love. I didn't believe that they had a good doctrine of love. I didn't believe they had a good doctrine of the goodness of God. Are you hearing me? Like, I didn't believe that I could be vulnerable with them and they would be safe. I didn't believe that they were going to have my back no matter what. I believed that if I told them a deep secret, they were going to tell the whole network about a deep secret. Can I just be honest with you? There was a gap in my life that I lacked leadership because some of my spiritual fathers were now more like spiritual brothers because I had surpassed them in some areas. And I had to wait for God to bring somebody that could level up more than me. And now, being in his life, whoo, Chachi, I didn't know what I was enjoying before I met him. Because he brings his saddle every day. And I'm the horse. He brings his saddle every day. I'm like, my ribs hurt. And at times I want to say, bro, do you know who I am? But I will tell you, without someone rebuking me, I don't have anyone fine-tuning me. I have no one aligning me to the pleasure of God. He rebukes me So I will make more than I've ever made. I will have more than I ever had. He doesn't rebuke me to make sure I'm not smoking. He rebukes me to make sure I'm on fire. I'm going to say it one more time. He doesn't rebuke me to make sure I'm not smoking. He rebukes me to make sure I'm on fire. Totally different paradigm. So be ready in season and out of season. Reprove, rebuke, exhort with great patience. You know what that looks like? That looks like meeting Alex 4 years ago, and you're just like, that was a good job, Alex. Right? Way to show up. Right? And you're just being patient. Now, 3 years later, if he was still operating there, there'd be an issue. But 3 years ago, Kyle, when I asked you to do something, and it took 10 years, I'm just joking, but it took a long season, and now I can ask you, and it gets done. You bring the guacamole to the party. I'm so proud of you. I'm serious. But when you start in rebuking and reproving and exhorting, it starts slow. It starts slow. But you have to be willing to walk with people all the way through. Are you catching this? Exhorting is aligning. It's saying, you know what? I gave you a task, and I understand you did it at a level 2. You're called to a level 10, but I'm not going to talk about the fact that you did it at a level 2. I'm just going to be thrilled that you did it at a level 2. The next time, I'm going to be thrilled that you did it at a level 3. The next time, I'm going to be thrilled. And if you don't do it at level 3 the next time, then there's a rebuke again. Because I want to rebuke you into growth. I want to rebuke you into stretching. I want to exhort you when you did well. Right? Like, remember when we were playing pickleball and you didn't know what you were doing, right? And then you would do something good. Did I tell you that you did something good? I did? I think so. I think every time you did something good, I was like, that was perfect. That was great. And then it was your time to serve, and what would I say? We need points. You remember? That's exhorting. Calling you higher. I don't just want to get good defense. You're serving. I want you to give me points. Right? And every time he did something right, I said, that was good. Every time he did something wrong, I'm like, all right, that's okay. Let's go. Right? Go up there. Get back there. Go back up there. Right? Throughout the whole process, I'm exhorting and rebuking. Anything that was done wrong, no, you can't go up there. You got to go back behind the line. No, now you got to go up. That's rebuking. Right? I'm rebuking what you did wrong, and I'm exhorting you into doing what's right. Right? And then every time you do it, I'm encouraging you. Every time I'm like, and I'm reproving whatever you didn't know about the sport. You didn't know that the ball was supposed to bounce. I got to reprove you the sport. You thought that the ball didn't have to bounce. I'm going to reprove. You have to let the ball bounce. Oh, this sport requires the ball to bounce once before I can hit it. Yes. Now I've reproved the sport. I've encouraged you. I have aligned you. I've rebuked you. And now you're a motivated, right? Are you motivated to play with me again? I'm motivated to play with you. Because you listened. And was I a jerk? I don't think I was a jerk. Was I a jerk? I trust Ami. I trust Ami to tell me. Ami, was I a jerk? No. But am I excited? Am I excited to play? Am I excited to win? Of course I am. Don't want to lose? No. Are you catching this? People need someone that can give a command, that can bring correction. If you are going to be a leader in what we're called to do, and this is all I got for you this morning. I'm done. Bring back the sermon slide. If you're called to be in a position, I'm going to tell you, be in a position for presence. I asked you to get out of that, and I'm going to go right back into it. What was that? 1 Timothy 4, right? Or 2 Timothy 4? So I solemnly charge you in the presence of God and Christ Jesus, who is the judge of the living and the dead, and by his appearing, his kingdom, preach the word, be ready in season and out of season, reprove, rebuke, exhort with great patience and instruction, for the time will come when they will not endure. Go ahead and put this up. For they will not endure sound. They will not endure. You know why? Because they're little pansies. Oh, I want to say something. They're pansy Christians. I just don't feel, listen, I love this. I just don't feel like, I should do that. I don't care how you feel. God said this. Yeah, I just don't feel like maybe that's what I believe. I don't care what you believe. You believe wrong. You have to have leadership within you so that you can say, listen, when you drink the poison, I know you don't believe that the poison's going to kill you. Could you imagine a stupid idiot in your house? I'm going to go ahead and drink the Clorox bleach. You're like, no, don't drink the Clorox bleach. And listen, this is the type of leadership we're enduring right now. Please, I don't think that you want to drink the Clorox bleach. No, I'm going to drink the Clorox bleach. Okay. Well, I'm like, dude, go to your own house or go to someone else's house and drink the bleach. You're not drinking the bleach here. If you pick the bleach up one more time, I'm going to take it out of your hands. You're not dying on my watch. You're not going to hurt yourself on my watch. I might hurt you taking it out of your hands too. But I love you even if you don't get it. Well, I just don't believe that the Clorox bleach is going to hurt me. Well, yeah, you're an idiot. Sorry. Well, my mom says I'm not an idiot. Well, your mom's an idiot too. Like, sorry. Apologize. Come from a family of idiots. Maybe that's why God brought you into my life, so that I could break the spirit of stupid off you. Yep. So the time will come when they will not endure sound doctrine, but wanting to have their ears tickled. And they will accumulate for themselves teachers in accordance to their own. You know what? I really just want to hear preaching about this. And I really want it to be like this. And I want the worship to be like this. I want it done my way. I want a gospel that I agree with. I want a gospel that I can still be in my lesbian relationship. I want a gospel where we wear masks in church. You can wear a mask and be in a lesbian relationship, and I'm going to love you, and I'm going to get in relationship with you. And I'm going to love you so much, I'm going to love the lesbian out of you, unless you're a male trapped in a lesbian body. You'll get that later. Listen. So the time will come when they will not endure sound doctrine, but wanting to have their own ears tickled, they will accumulate for themselves teachers in accordance to their own what? Their own what? Desires. And will turn away their ears from the truth and turn aside to myths. But you, everybody say me, be sober. You know what that word sober means? Don't be an idiot. You be sober in all things. Endure hardship. Oh, someone needs to look in the mirror and say, Endure some hardship. I just don't know if I want to have that hard conversation with him. Endure some hard stuff. Lily, have we had to endure some hard stuff lately? Jasmine, in the years I've known you, have we endured some hard stuff? I could look around this room. Not yet. We haven't endured some hard stuff yet, but I'm sure, Ami, it's coming. And by the way, do you know when someone is covenant with you? When you can tell them no, and they don't walk away, and they don't get butthurt. When you can tell them no, and they grow to you, and not push you away. That's when you know you're coming to covenant. The guy who says, "Oh, PC, I'm going to be at your church forever. I love you." Bull honky. Stay the hell away from me. Are you hearing me? It's when I tell you no that I see how your heart really responds. Is that right? I've kicked you out of my house. You came running back. I'm like, get the hell out. Don't ever come here. I don't want to talk to you. Couldn't stand him. Could not stand this kid. But he was called to me. We've been through some hard stuff. But have you ever had a preacher tell you get the hell out before? What? I mean, but I wanted the hell out of him, not the heaven. I wanted the hell out of him, not the heaven. And once he was like, I'm willing to come into a covenant love, now I was willing to give you willing to buy a stupid vehicle. Like I put my money where my mouth was. I put my time where my mouth was. You know what I'm saying? I followed up. I followed through on. Be sober, endure hardship, and do the work. Be sober, endure hardship, and do the work. Most people don't want to do the work. Oh, be sober? Okay, with sustain from doing something? I'll sustain from doing something. I'm up for that. Go through hardship? Oh. The one thing was hard enough. I stopped doing the bad thing I was doing. Now you don't want me just to stop doing the bad thing, but you also want me to have hardship? Like go through hardship with you? Come on. And now I got to do, how much you paying? Do work? Like, how much an hour? Oh, no, it's volunteer. What? I want you to give your life for this. Fulfill your ministry. I don't know what your ministry is. Fulfill it. But I promise you, if you're called to be under this leadership and in this house, you will. Because I'm going to make sure that you're not just well studied, but you're connected to his presence. You're connected to his heart. There's no such thing as burnout. There's no such thing as burnout. There's only burnout if you're not in the presence of God. There's only burnout if you're not in the presence of God. If you're not in the presence of God, it's by your might and your power. You're going to run and you're going to be out of breath. But if you're breathing Jesus, there is no lack of breath, no lack of oxygen, no lack of fire. When do people have burnout? When they're not in presence and they just have position. Youth pastor, senior pastor, music pastor, evangelist, I don't care who you are, CEO, whatever you are, you're going to have burnout. You know why? Because you have no presence. Without a presence, you don't have vision. Without vision, you don't have values. I mean, I could go on and I could preach for another hour and a half, and I would enjoy it. No, I'm just joking. All right, are you good? Did you get something? Stand.